I'll be honest with you, my first time watching season 3 of Squid Game, I did not like it. It seemed like a mess, and I wasn't invested in the characters as I was in season 1. The idea of splitting the season in half just to have more episodes of screen time is overused and doesn't work here whatsoever. I was quite bored watching episode 1 and 3, and on episode 6 I was like, okay guys, finish it already. I did not like the games at all. It felt as if they had lost their importance completely. Season 3 has also continued with one of the best storylines ever touching the screens, the detective storyline. And it is basically how the whole season feels. It feels that nothing changes, that nothing is resolved. The games are still continuing, but this time in America.
Total control. Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing, bing. You know the.
Like, what are they going to play at? Dodgeball? It might actually be a cool idea. Imagine playing an actual 6v6 dodgeball and whoever gets shot is getting eliminated. It'd be fire. But we're a little bit off topic. I just did not get this amount of investment watching season 3 as I got watching season 1 or even 2. To be honest, I think that season 2 was unnecessary, but at least it was inappropriately fun to watch. I was invested in the character build-ups. It had a bunch of good callbacks to season 1, where the same situationships played out differently. It even had a slight bit of meta humor and even tried to make fun of the detective genre as a whole. I even enjoyed the memes. It had me so hyped that I was waiting for how all that would play out in season 3, but I was left disappointed. Let's talk about the games first, because the games resemble my issue with season 3 perfectly. Season 3 contains 3 games where in 2 of them there is literally, if you're stronger than everybody else, you win. For example, hide and seek, which appears to be not a game of hiding and seeking, but just one half of the players slaughtering the other. And like, why wouldn't blues just all go to one room and just create a hell of a crowd and block the door completely? Like, what would reds do then? And if you think that to win you must find the right door and exit the game, but no, Grandma doesn't exit the game, Junhee doesn't exit the game, Yihu doesn't either. Knowing how strict the rules are, they would all be dead, but they all pass. Then what is even the point of finding the exit door? The jump rope game is the only game in season 3 which is actually a child's game, and it also symbolically stands before the last game to eliminate as many players as possible, mirroring the glass stepping stones from season 1. However, the very last game is the biggest problem of the whole season. Let me break it down first. Let's take the season 1 as an example. All the games worked the same as real children's games, but with sometimes bigger scale and with the elements of life and death situationships. When you lose in normal tug of war, you usually fall on the ground, but here you fall from a higher distance and die. This is an example of good use of the game's scale when it also keeps the status of a game in the first place. You might argue that the last game is called the King of the Hill, but it is not. Its actual name is, which raises some concerns. Does it even exist as a children's game? Where do children even play it? Do they also push each other from high places to death? This game just doesn't fit the idea of the show. But it seems to me that the director just wanted the game to take place very high up so he could pull this overly dramatic and emotional ending at the end without backing it up with any logic. And here we finally come across my main point about the season being worse than the first one. The creator of the series, Kwon Dong-hyuk, is a very smart guy. I think he's one of the most determined people who has ever worked with Netflix. Just remember that Squid Game became the most viewed TV show on Netflix when it came out. It was justified because it had passion, relatable characters, a good story. But the best aspect of it was not so subtle but careful approach to exploration of the topics of burnouts, poverty, justice, or capitalism. It was genuinely very cool how the show was able to express so much in a very simple way. The director always knew what he was trying to tell the audience, and he never pulled the drama out of thin air. That's why one of the best aspects of season 1 was always that the people there are just people. They're not pure good or pure evil. Even Sang-woo, who is in my opinion the most interesting of them all, was so human. You felt it when you saw him knowingly killed Ali. You knew Sang-woo didn't want it in his heart, but he had to, because there was no other way. The reason why it worked was because in a well-written story, there are always characters who are adjusting to the plot, and not the plot adjusting to them. So the characters push the story forward and go through active changes because of it. But season 3 does everything differently. Let's take the 4th, 5th, and 6th episodes of season 3 as a negative example. There is this group of bad guys who are there just to stretch the episode. How? During this dinner scene in episode 4, they are explained by the guard that in the next game they will be able to choose who they want to eliminate.
마지막 게임은 여러분들이 직접 탈락자를 결정하실 수 있는 게임입니다.
So they obviously choose
세 명이면 간단하잖아. 고민할 것도 없어. 저 456번 그리고 222번 애새끼 그리고 저기 125번 약쟁이놈 딱 저 세 놈만 탈락시키면 돼.
Then the game starts the next day in episode 5 and this happens.
자, 우리 이성적으로 얘기를 좀 해봅시다. 이거 저런 막 밀고 개싸움으로 가면 잘못하다 다 죽을 수도 있어요. 안 그래요? 예. 안타깝긴 하지만 한 단계에서 딱 한 명씩만 탈락시키는 게 희생을 최소화하고 모두를 위한 베스트 같은데 어떻게 생각해요? 좋습니다. 맞아요. 그러면은 이제
Like they have decided it already. They agreed on everything. And instead of, for example, pushing Min Soo while he's having a trip standing on the edge and facing his back to you, they're standing in a circle minding their own business. Brilliant. Why did these people get to the final game again? Because they played strategically, or maybe they were smart throughout the game? No, they're not smart. They're actually brain dead. It's just the plot requires to have an opposition to Gi-hun and the baby, so Gi-hun can dramatically sacrifice himself, which was absolutely avoidable by the way. Don't you think it's weird that the plot is constructed perfectly so the story would go how the director wants it and not how it would logically be correct? At one point, Crypto Guy just walks past the button a few times, when if he pressed it, he could have easily won. Instead, he falls for Gi-hun's rage baits, suddenly becoming so vengeful and aggressive. It is not even in his character. There can be million excuses about why he acts like that, but the button was the whole point all the time. It's like the characters became stupid after stepping on the last tower. Also, Gi-hun decides that it's a good idea to throw the Crypto Guy himself down. Like, why? Because we don't need a story to end like that. We need Gi-hun to kill himself for the sake of the message. But what message, you say? The one we have heard before back in season 1. If you ever noticed in season 1 and 3, almost every single topic and idea was already established and explored previously in season 1, and there is no limit to exploring a topic further. However, let's take the humans are theme.
왜 이런 짓을 하는 거지?
경마 좋아하시죠? 당신들은 말입니다. 경마장의 말. 의외였어요.
The whole idea of the duality of humans was already explored deep enough to think and reflect on it, already saying enough and raising the important question without the urgent need to poke it in our faces. The difference is, in season 1 it wasn't so cheesy. Did Hwan care as much about the story in season 3? Probably not. Why? Because he got tired so much of this show that he wasn't as committed as he was with season 1. Here's actually the proof of that provided by Forbes. Despite the first season's open ending, in which protagonist Song Gi-hun is about to board a plane but instead turns around and looks directly at the camera, Hwan says that it wasn't done with the second season in mind. Hwan admits that at the time he figured that if the series happened to do well and there was a strong demand for a second season, the story could pick up from the moment Gi-hun turns around. But I wasn't seriously considering that possibility. Physically and mentally, making the first season was so exhausting, so I never thought I'd want to make another season. So what do we have on hands? The exhausted director told us everything he intended to, but you know the studio. So here we are. Here we are with storylines that go nowhere, with the characters who aren't as well written, with the whole plot being a process of chewing off the same things we've come across before. In conclusion, I would like to address the good parts. I like the message behind the story. I like how both season 2 and 3 made me really emotional and made me experience all the happy moments of celebration and the moments of sadness alongside them. Hwang Dong-hyuk knows how to bring emotion to the screen, and so do the actors. There were so many real moments that you can reflect on, like a mother killing her child, or how we sometimes put our guilt on somebody else, or the whole idea behind the humans are line. The drama of the show is done incredibly well, but execution, how the plot is constructed to be convenient for the director to shape the story, and how lazy it was done at times. Yes, you might argue that maybe the idea was to go more into realism, and it is realistic that the survivors are not always the main cast, or that sometimes even when you try as hard as you can, nothing is resolved. And I think this perspective does have the right to live, but it's more likely just a potential attempt to simply shoehorn the drama into the plot lines the director clearly wasn't fully happy creating.